As kids, we learn that bullies can't help it. They pick on anyone they think is smaller, weaker. They pick on people they think won't fight back.
So you're going to give a speech or are you going to ask a question?
And like all bullies,
I'd like to punch him in the face, I'll tell you.
they keep going.
Why don't you go yourself, you tiny brain, and I hope this gets picked up.
Until they get punched in the face.
I still got hope because I know we are still here and we will never quit.
Until they see someone standing up.
This is the voice of the people.
Not breaking.
If the governor thinks he can do a better job, then he should run for state attorney, not president.
Not bending.
That's my question to you, Governor. You're the governor of the state. I'm not the governor of the state.
Not giving in.
Do you think that your tweets and your name calling are turning people off?
Because when bullies get their way, they never stop.
Welcome to the Truth and Democracy Coalition's monthly meeting. My name is Rich Procida. I'm the founder of the Truth and Democracy Coalition and the host of the Truth and Democracy podcast. Now, I was contacted by Sandeya Rani Jha a month ago or something like that. She has a consulting firm, and somebody contacted me there saying that she wanted to come in and speak about her new book and so forth. And so I set it up and everything. And then I drafted some questions. Now, these were not easy questions. These were difficult questions, tough questions, I guess. And I sent them to her last week, and I didn't get a response. And then in the middle of last week, I sent her another email asking her to confirm that she would be here. And I didn't get a response. And then just a couple hours ago, I got a message saying that she would. I guess we still have people coming in here, so we're going to have to. I don't want to have to tell this over again, but that she had blown out her eardrum. She's not going to make it, and she's canceling. I don't know if it was the questions that blew out her eardrum, but so what I'm planning to do here is I'm planning to pose these questions to you because they are a little long questions, and I know all of you have opinions about this issue. And so I'm going to pose these difficult questions to you, and I like and just raise your hand. There's a raise hand feature in the reactions menu. I believe it's in the reactions menu, or you can just unmute and speak if that's what you prefer to do. But if I get a number of hands up, I like to go up by the hands. I'm going to be looking at everybody at the time, but I'm going to start one question at a time, and then we can go through that. But before we do that, I'd like to tell you a little bit about the Truth and Democracy Coalition, and then talk about some future events coming up. So the Truth and Democracy Coalition was formed to build a pro-democracy movement in America. We educate the public about disinformation, teach people to be critical of the propaganda they consume, and provide critical analysis of current events and social issues. We produce media and educational materials, hold seminars and meetings, work with other organizations, and organize events and activities geared toward building a pro-democracy movement in America. The coalition seeks to build communities of people of different faiths and ideologies to defend and promote democracy locally, nationally, and globally. Now, on Sunday, May 21st, this year at noon on May 21st on Sunday, we welcome Harvard-educated American moral philosopher, cultural commentator, and essayist Susan Neiman. Dr. Neiman has written extensively on the juncture between Enlightenment, moral philosophy, metaphysics, and politics, both for scholarly audiences and the general public. She describes herself as a lifelong leftist and socialist and is an unlikely critic of wokeism. She argues that the tenets of the woke have become antithetical to the traditional values of the left. She currently lives in Germany, where she is the director of the Einstein Forum in Potsdam. Neiman writes in her new book, Left is Not Woke. I'm unwilling to cede the word left or accept the binary suggestion that those who aren't woke must be reactionary. A left-wing critique of those who seem to share the same values might seem to be an instance of narcissism, but it's not small differences that separate me from those who are woke. She adds that the discourse around wokeism is confusing. It evokes emotions that all progressive people share, such as empathy for those who are marginalized and indignation for the oppressed. But those emotions are derailed by a range of theoretical assumptions that ultimately undermine them. So Dr. Neiman will speak to us about her new book, Left is Not Woke. So to register for that, and I'll end up putting these in the chat for you, go to tinyurl/leftnotwoke. Then on June 4th, 2023, at 2:00, we will start our monthly Red Pill Men's Group. Men are dying. They're killing themselves with drugs and alcohol and committing suicide at far higher rates than women. They also make up the perpetrators of violence, and mass shooters are mostly young men. They are turning to authoritarianism and make up a large portion of far-right extremists and mega activists. What's wrong with men? New studies show that implicit bias is strongest against men. Men are more the subjects of implicit bias than people of color or the poor. Men have become public enemy number one in our culture. They are viewed as dogs and trash, among many other things. The saying, women need a man like a fish needs a bicycle, has become popular among women who no longer need financial support from men. Studies show that women are happier being single and no longer want to love and take care of a man. All of this has a profound effect on men. Pining for the past when they had more authority, men are turning to drugs, alcohol, suicide, and authoritarianism. So this is for men. This is a men's support group. So to register for this nonpartisan men's support group, go to tinyurl/redpillmen. Then on June 11th, 2023 at 2 p.m., Richard Procida, that's me by the other way, an early pro-feminist activist, the author of Social Issues in Global Perspective, Pornography, and the leader of the Truth and Democracy Coalition, will lead a discussion about what's wrong with men and what to do about it. A survivor of severe sexual abuse, he will tell his story, address the problems facing men today, and talk about what needs to happen to move men back from the brink and back to sanity. Now let's turn to our discussion.
Can I say it now?
Well, Jeffrey, yeah, go ahead, say it, Jeffrey, real quickly.
That what you said about being silent, that's actually a quote, I think, by Dr. Martin Luther King.
Okay.
I think
all right.
And secondly,
all
I
right.
wanted to bring up something, since you're bringing up religion, I thought I might as well bring up this idea I had. You know, the idea of reversing, also known as crimes against religion.
Okay.
So I wanted you guys' opinion, all of you. Its main goal is to target hate groups who use religion as a means to justify their illegal acts, or cults. You know, like like Jonestown, the cult in Japan, whatever that
Yes, I heard of it.
and that nerve gas attack. That was definitely a crime against religion, and also and others too.
All right, thank you, Jeffrey. Thank you.
Well, that's the only the part. I wanted their opinion on it.
Okay, well, it's out there, Jeffrey. It's out there. So if people want to comment on it, they will. So thank you, Jeffrey. Adam, go ahead and unmute yourself. Okay, go ahead.
So what bothers me is that I see like people make, our government and judges and politicians will make decisions or vote in a certain way and they'll say it's not religious, yet it really is. What they're doing is really, it is based on religion. Like the Texas abortion decision, like if you really read through there, that judge's opinions were like very much grounded in Christianity, but he just whitewashed it in the law. And so what concerns me is that like religion is creeping into the governmental decisions and decision making and our policies. Like for example, when the Trump administration eliminated a lot of like diversity and inclusion programs, but they're whitewashing it and not saying it's not religion. And so like you can't really, I just think that like the approach is very dishonest. I think they should just, people that are, I think you should not ground policy or law in your own religious beliefs and then like whitewash it and say it's not. That's not what you're doing, because that's just, it's really, it's not fair to everybody else impose your religious beliefs through policy and law. That's all I want to say.
Well, yes, somebody asked in the chat, I don't know if it was you, can we be honest about, can we be honest about race? I think they said, but I have a question for you. People have their personal values, right? And those personal values can be religious. And when you go into the polling booth or you're a judge sitting, I mean, one thing that judges are, they're human beings. And when you're sitting on a judge and you have these values and these beliefs, so it's really hard to say that these values and beliefs are not going to be affect your decisions or affect your voting, or that you're not allowed to bring them into the polling booths. So how would you suggest that we address this problem of people bringing their personal beliefs, which is fair game, really, into their decision making and their thinking process and their critical analysis?
I mean, if you bring when you're acting in your own capacity, I mean, absolutely. I mean, if you're going to vote, you can't go vote for a candidate that you think is going to make decisions that are in line with your religious beliefs. That said, once you're in office, you shouldn't be using, trying to make decisions that pander to the religious right, and then whitewashing the politics and law and saying that it's not religion. That's how I mean, voters can go ahead and be as religious as they want at the ballot box. But once someone becomes gets into office, I think that you need to dial it back, and particularly people like George W. Bush, Mike Pence, really just kind of I think it should not be. I think you shouldn't talk about it while you're giving the State of the Union. You shouldn't. You shouldn't talk about it at work if you're working in the government. But yeah, you need to. Yeah, I think you just, if you're a government official or a politician, you really just need to watch the line, because you're not just a voter. You're someone that represents all of us, and not all of us have your religion.
I think you're right about that, and I think we should be definitely inclusive. But one thing we do have a disagreement, and I think that the left needs to turn it up instead. Turn up a leftist position on religion, and they are, in many ways. Some people like this guy McWhorter, a professor from Columbia, calls wokeism a religion. So, and there are quasi-religious practices that we engage in, land acknowledgement, naming our pronouns on a ritualistic basis. So I think that's how human beings are. We are religious animals, and whether we call it politics or whether we call it religion, it's very much the same thing. I don't want to let you go without giving you an opportunity to respond to that, if you want to.
No, I agree with you. No, I agree with you.
All right. Thank you, Adam. Feel free to pop up again. We're going to need. All right. Thank you. All right. If you can turn on your camera, Samuel and Debbie, if you can, we'd love to see you. And Samuel, it's your turn. So come on. I see your beautiful face, but it disappeared right now. Go ahead. Now you need to unmute. Now you need to, there you go.
You can't hear me as well with the camera. If I eliminate the camera, my voice will be much clearer. Tell me if there's a difference. Can you hear me now?
No, there's no difference. There's no difference.
Oh, there's no difference. Good. Then I can turn on the camera. Because sometimes I'm on Zoom, I'm not audible at all. Okay. The situation is since Trump, the Republican convention of 2016, Trump encouraged the lack of separation between church and state. And it's just gotten very bad. So what we should do is try to add state to religion. So in each church, mosque, congregation, they should vote on how they think God, what God is, how they symbolize God. I will tell you, I symbolize God as just simply symbolizes a breath, the cause of cause, and the omnipresence. Not a king, not a dictator, not somebody, not even a person who gives out rules, but we need to find out. And it's an enormous job. There's hundreds and thousands of churches, mosques, and synagogues. Had each of them vote, and every 5 years, as language changes every 5 or 10 years, have them vote again and new members, because God is changing. There's constant change. These people are right-wing people think God is stable forever, eternally. But the concept of God, as the languages change, the concepts always change, even concept of God. So we should have each institution vote on what they think is God, and whatever prevails. It could probably cause a lot of battle between institutions, but at least there's a separation between church and state within each institution of religion. You understand?
Yeah, I think you make a good point in that I really think we need to talk about political issues at church. I mean, where else are we going to talk about them? Really, if you can't talk about them in church, I mean, these are important social issues. But I also have a difficulty with bringing other ideologies into religion and ignoring scripture or ignoring the religious aspect of it, and then just preaching on politics. So I'm a little conflicted in my view, because after you make your point, I realize how even bringing different socialist ideologies and the DEI and the anti-racism into the church, it's on one hand, it's sort of substituted itself for theological discussion and for discussions of scripture. And it's also brought the divisive propaganda into the church. But on the other hand, those are the issues that we need to be discussing in church. And so I think you make a good point, Samuel.
Yeah, a lot of we find out how many churches believe every word of the Bible and Bible written by God. Of course, God doesn't write, but let's find out how many churches believe that God writes things. I think one of the most perfect humans wrote the Bible. But we have to vote on it. Each institution then will know better on to what extent how many people think God wrote the Bible.
Yeah, I know. I mean, it's obvious God didn't write the Bible. As they say, the Bible didn't fall out of heaven in a glad bag, So thank you, Samuel. Feel free to pop up again, okay? Okay, so Debbie, we're ready for you if you want to unmute. And if you want to show us your beautiful face, that would be lovely. Okay, great.
Hi, I probably have an opinion that most people will not agree with. I don't think that religion deserves a place in politics at all. I think there should be a complete separation of church and state. The reason why I say that is because we all fell down the rabbit hole. They're using religion, the extreme right is using religion to cover up what the real problems are in the United States, so that we don't speak on those. We're stuck on all this religious right stuff. They're not talking about raising the debt ceiling. They're not talking about the problems that we have with homelessness. They're not talking about the really important issues that we have today, and they're covering it all up, and they're pounding us with their religion. It's not that I don't believe in religion. I believe everybody, is entitled to have their own faith. I don't think they're entitled to try and shove it down my throat what they believe in, as I won't try and shove my beliefs down on somebody else. But I really think we have to wake up and realize that we're just falling right into their trap. We're falling into their rabbit hole, and it's just going to continue until we start screaming enough, and that we put them back in their little niches, so to speak. I don't want to be nasty about it, but they need to go back to where they belong, and we need to move on with this country, because unless we do, we can say goodbye to democracy.
But I always point out to people that the separation of church and state is not the separation of religion and politics. Only the state is prohibited by the Constitution. It says no state shall, or that was applied to the federal government, and then I think it was the 14th Amendment that made it applicable to the states. But religion, and as far as politics, religion is fair game. And it is protected. It's in the First Amendment. It's protected free speech. And so I don't know how you can ask people to leave their personal beliefs and values at home and to act as if they can go into the polling place and just say, oh, this is my religion for my personal life. And those beliefs and values don't apply. In other words, if I believe that we should love our neighbor, that's a personal thing. I should love my neighbor personally. But as a nation, it doesn't matter. So who's not talking about helping the poor? It's obviously the right's not talking about it, but neither are the Christian left is, but they're talking about it in secular terms. But it's right there in the Bible. Lift up the lowly, bring down the powerful, and leave the rich empty. So I think that by excluding religious beliefs and values, we are excluding the most progressive and liberal and even socialist type of values from our, and we're handing the weapon, this Bible, over to the right to just slam us over the head with, and we're not confronting them. We're not in a control. We're here saying no religion. So it makes us look like we're against religion or we're anti-Christian when we start to say, oh, keep your freaking religion at home.
But they're using their religion against us. They're using
Well,
it.
of course they are. Of course they are.
Rights.
Yeah. So why don't we use it against them?
It does not belong. When you're a legislator and when you're a senator and when you're a congressman, you need to walk in there with the idea that you're working for everyone, regardless of what their religious beliefs are. You cannot take a vote on women's rights or anything else based on your religious beliefs, and that's what they've done, and that's what has got to stop. They're trying to force their so-called religious beliefs down my throat, and I resent it big time.
Right.
I think the issue too is that it's a perversion of religion. That, like it's such an obscenity that these evangelicals have taken on somehow, the Bible and Christ's teachings, and the stuff that they act and the stuff that they put out there is a perversion of what was meant. So Richard, it's really cool. Like what you're saying, you're right. And you got me thinking in a whole different way. So
Okay.
for me, it's the thing with religion, it's the perversion of it. And if we could keep bringing that out, like I hate the fact that I won't put an American flag up. Why? Because I don't want to be identified with whatever. So, and then I said, I want to put the American flag up. I want to put the gay flag underneath it. And I want to put the Ukrainian flag underneath that. And my husband was like, no, don't do that, because we might, we'll become a victim of some violence or something, But it angers me. So the American symbols of American democracy, symbols of religion, have all been perverted and taken over by the right.
Right. And the left.
But what Debbie is saying
Okay.
is,
You
which
guys
is what
have,
I agree.
you have cameras? I can put you up there.
I'm
Go
sorry.
ahead. Go ahead. I was hoping
Okay.
to put people up, but go ahead.
I think what Debbie's trying to say is that, I don't think that saying that I don't believe religion should be put into politics is doing away with someone's right to believe something. My thing is that someone's right to believe that abortion isn't right. They have that opinion, but don't take that opinion, go to Washington, file legislation, and then vote to say, well, I don't care what Tamara's First Amendment right is to her opinion, because this is what we believe. And we have the majority 5 people here to do that.
But do you see how, right?
Look, religion should not be used to make law in the United States. Religious beliefs should not be used to make law in the United States.
But do you see how unworkable that is? How that's impossible?
Why is that unworkable?
Because you're telling people to separate these ideas in their head as if we can separate our personal beliefs and values from our politics.
That's what they're supposed
Ideas
to
in
do.
your
That's
head.
their
Well, that's
job.
not what they're supposed to do.
That's their
Ideas
job.
That's not the
head.
Constitution. It's free speech. That's free
I
speech.
understand
Hey,
it's free
you
speech,
get
but when you
all
take
the
a
free-
job, you're supposed to follow the rules, and the rules
The
don't
rules,
tell you.
that's not the rules.
The rules don't tell you that to force their religious beliefs on everyone in the United States.
No,
I understand they may be against abortion. I understand that. I don't have a problem with that. I have a problem when they vote against every single woman here in this room or in the United States, against my daughter, against my granddaughter, that they can't have an abortion. They don't have that right to do that. They don't have a right to tell them what they can and cannot do.
That's a political opinion, right?
Based on their religious ethics.
No,
and
That's
that's
your
what
opinion.
they're
that's
doing.
not an opinion. That's not a political opinion.
Of course it is.
That's a you took a person's First Amendment right to an opinion. You got a group of people together and said, hey, let's file this paperwork to take that right against a whole nother section of people based on what we believe.
Oh, okay, so let's move on to the next question, because they're going to vote.
Could I put my 2 cents in real quick?
Okay, because we got other questions to go to, Jeffrey.
All right.
But what I wanted to say is they're going to vote. They're going to vote.
This is why I created reversing. It's illegal, making it illegal to pervert religion, what religion truly is. Like religion's all about love, not hate.
Well, that's absolutely true. It's about love, and it's about loving your neighbor, loving your enemies, loving, and the neighbor includes the country next door, as well as people of different race and different cultures and different countries. And so that's definitely political as well as personal value.